People say the deepest hurt comes from enemies. But that is a lie. Hurt tastes different when it comes from your own child. It cuts deeper. It bruises softer. It whispers instead of stabbing. My name is Mama Zuri Komu, but in Nairobi you will hear people call me Mutu wa Mizizi. The woman of roots. A herbal healer. A midwife. A woman whose hands have held more newborns than spoons. My fame was never grand. It lived quietly in the cracks of small houses. In the whispers of mothers. In the footsteps of healed children running through dust. But that morning, when my daughter, Dr. Amara Komu, opened her shining new clinic in the wealthiest corner of Nairobi, my hands, my work, my life, became her shame. I remember standing under the shade of a jacaranda tree. Its purple petals falling like pieces of the past. I had worn my best kitenge dress. The one with gold threading. And the smell of lemongrass from my medicine hut. When Amara approached me, her white coat glowing in the morning sun, she did not hug me. She looked around first. To see who was watching. Mama, she whispered sharply. Please, for God's sake, don't say you're my mother today. My heart stumbled in my chest. Why? I asked quietly. Her eyes avoided mine. Your hands, they look too rough. People here won't understand where I come from. If anyone asks, just say you are a distant relative who came to support. Her words fell on me like cold rain. Rough hands. Too rural. Too local. After all the nights I stayed awake grinding herbs to bring down her fever. After walking miles to fetch medicine when the roads washed away. After raising her alone when the man I loved was forced to leave to protect his career. Now she wanted me hidden. Folded behind her success like an old cloth. I swallowed at my lips trembled. Sawa, I whispered. Let today be yours. She smiled, relieved, and hurried back toward the journalists, the politicians, the cameras. And I remained outside the entrance. Like a stranger waiting for permission. Then it happened. A black diplomatic car stopped just in front of me. The door opened slowly. Out stepped a man with a tall frame. A gray beard groomed with dignity. A suit stitched so sharply it could cut silence. A man whose presence softened the air around him. When his eyes met mine, time folded. Mama Zuri, he breathed. My heart nearly failed. Idris. I whispered. Ambassador Idris Lima. The man who once held my hands under a mango tree. And promised me a life of partnership and peace. The man whose powerful family had dragged him away from me. And from our unborn child. The man who never knew the daughter I raised alone. He stepped toward me with a shock that melted into something softer. You, here? He asked. Why are you standing outside? My voice caught. I pointed to the front doors. To the ceremony inside. To the daughter who refused to claim me. Understanding spread across his features like sunlight breaking through cloud. He took a deep breath. Then walked right past the guards. Past the cameras. Straight to the microphone. Journalists turned. Politicians stiffened. Doctors adjusted their coats. He raised his hand. Ladies and gentlemen, he said. I have something to reveal. Something Nairobi should have heard 40 years ago. The entire world inside that clinic froze. Amara turned toward him. Confused, startled, afraid. And Idris. The man I once loved. Looked straight at her. Then at me. Then at all of Kenya. The truth buried for 4 decades. Was rising at last. The moment Ambassador Idris Lima lifted the microphone. The noise in the Grand Clinic courtyard faded into a trembling silence. Politicians lowered their champagne glasses. Doctors straightened their coats. Nairobi's most important people leaned forward as if truth itself demanded their attention. Even the wind paused. Idris looked at me once. Softly, deeply. The way a man looks at a memory he thought he had lost forever. Then he began. 40 years ago, he said. I loved a woman this country never knew. Gasps. Whispers. Cameras pointed at him like hungry insects. My breath trembled. Every word he spoke was lifting soil from a grave I thought would never open. Idris continued. I was a young diplomat. She was a herbal healer from Kiambu. Her name was... He turned slowly. His eyes finding mine. Zuri. A wave of shock swept through the courtyard. Amara froze. Her face drained of all color. Idris's voice deepened. My family, powerful, political, terrified of scandal, threatened to ruin my career if I did not leave her. He paused. And like a coward, I obeyed. The crowd murmured again, loud, nervous, scandal-thirsty. Idris raised his voice. Not in anger, but in a grief that still lived inside him. I left Zuri without knowing she carried my child. A child who grew up without my name. Without my protection. Without my love. The air thickened. People turned toward me. Some with pity. Some with admiration. Some with disbelief. Amara whispered. Baba. As if the word tasted foreign on her tongue. Idris looked at her slowly. Amara, he said softly. You are my daughter. Her hands flew to her mouth. She stumbled backward. Hitting the glass wall of the clinic she had built on a foundation of hidden shame. Mama, she whispered at me. You knew? You knew all these years? My knees felt weak, but I stood firm. This was a truth that had carried me through childbirth, loneliness, hunger, and heartbreak. Yes, I said quietly. I knew. But I also knew the world was not kind to girls born without famous names. Amara's voice cracked. Mama, why didn't you tell me? I took a slow breath. Because your father's world was not safe for us then. And I wanted you to grow strong. Before you learned you were born from both love and fear. Idris stepped down from the podium. He walked toward us. Toward me. With eyes that held 4 decades of apology. Zuri, he whispered. I came here today not only because I recognized you. But because I recognized the healing garden outside this clinic. It has your touch. Your knowledge. Your spirit. He looked at Amara. And you, my daughter. I am sorry. You deserved a father who fought for you. Not one who spent his life letting the past control him. Amara shook, tears streaming. I was ashamed of Mama, she sobbed. I thought her herbs, her clothes, her hut. They made me look small. The words pierced me. But Idris held up his hand. No, he said firmly. They made you powerful. Your mother is one of the finest healers in Kenya. And it is I, not her, who carries the shame. He turned back to the crowd. Before this clinic opens, everyone must know the truth. This day, this celebration, is built on a woman who healed thousands without ever asking for recognition. The journalists leaned in. Cameras flashed. The politicians stood stiff. Their secrets trembling under Idris's open confession. Then Idris said the words that divided the room in half. Today, I claim Zuri as the woman I wronged. And Amara as my daughter. And I vow to correct the sins of my family. Starting now. Amara took a step forward. Her voice shaking like a child who finally understood what she had stolen from her own mother. Mama. Forgive me. Forgive me for hiding you. Forgive me for choosing pride over love. Tears blurred my vision. I touched her cheek gently. Amara, I whispered. I have healed wounds deeper than this. We will mend us too. Then Idris did something no one expected. He took the microphone again and said, "There is still one more truth Nairobi must hear." The courtyard stiffened. Amara's eyes widened. I held my breath. Because I knew. The biggest secret. The one powerful families had buried. The one that destroyed our lives. Was still waiting to rise, when Idris lifted the microphone again. A hush fell over the courtyard so deep. I could hear the trembling of my own breath. Politicians shifted uneasily. A few stepped back. Their faces tightening like people who suddenly smelled danger. They knew something was coming. Something heavy. Something sharp. Something that could topple careers. And shake Nairobi's foundations. Idris' voice dropped lower. A tone that reminded me of the quiet before a storm breaks. "There is a reason," he said slowly. "Why my family forced me to abandon Zuri 40 years ago." My heart clenched. I knew this truth. I had carried it in silence. Buried under my ribs like a stone that never dissolved. But Nairobi, my daughter, and Idris himself, had never heard it spoken aloud. Idris continued. A scandal, one that never reached the newspapers, was covered up by powerful hands. The journalists leaned in. Their fingers tightened on their cameras. They could smell a story. Idris looked directly at the row of politicians seated in the front. Their suits suddenly looking too tight. "My father," he said slowly. "The man this city still respects as a former cabinet minister. Did something unforgivable." A ripple of fear swept through the audience. Idris breathed in deeply. As if gathering decades of courage. He ordered an investigation into rural herbal healers. Including Zuri. Claiming they were dangerous and illegitimate. My chest tightened. Memories rushed in. The night armed men stormed my village. Burning herb gardens. Dragging healers into trucks. Accusing us of practicing witchcraft. While hospitals lay empty of medicines. Idris' voice deepened. But that investigation was a lie. A disguise. He looked at me then. A look full of regret and fury tangled together. It was never about medicine. It was about land. The politicians flinched. Zuri's community stood on fertile land, Idris continued. Land my father wanted for a diplomatic housing project. So he declared the village a health risk. And ordered raids. Murmurs grew louder. One politician stood up, angry. Ambassador Lima, your father helped build Kenya. You cannot speak of him like this. Idris did not even look at him. I am speaking of truth, he said calmly. And truth does not change because a man had a powerful title. He turned to the crowd again. During those raids, Zuri was targeted. Not because she was dangerous. But because she refused to leave the land her ancestors were buried in. The memory stabbed into my chest. The night the soldiers came for me. The way they grabbed my arm. The way I screamed for help. While holding Amara, only 2 months old. Idris' voice cracked. My father discovered Zuri was carrying my child. To avoid a scandal that would ruin our family. He ordered that she be removed quietly. Gasps rose like a wave. Mama, Amara whispered. Her hands trembling. They tried to take you? I closed my eyes, swallowing the broken years. Yes, I said softly. They dragged me away. But I escaped with you in my arms. Amara sobbed. The crowd watched, horrified. Idris continued with fire in his eyes. And my father forced me to choose. Obey him and leave Zuri. Or lose my diplomatic career and endanger our child. He pressed a hand to his forehead. As if ashamed of the young man he once was. I chose wrongly. I let fear dictate my love. Then he turned to me fully. I have lived with that shame for 40 years, Zuri. My throat tightened. Idris lifted his chin. Voice strong again. But today, I speak this truth not to dishonor my father, but to free the woman he tried to erase. He gestured toward me. Zuri Komu is not a witch. Not a threat. Not a forgotten villager. He raised his voice. She is a healer. A mother. A woman this nation should honor. I felt something break inside me. But it wasn't pain. It was relief. Relief that my story, my struggle, my survival, was no longer hidden in the cracks of mud huts and whispered rumors. Amara walked toward me slowly, her eyes drowning in guilt. Mama, she sobbed. I rejected you. I was ashamed of my roots. Ashamed of your herbs. Ashamed of your life. I touched her cheek gently. My daughter, I said softly. You only repeated the shame the world placed on me. Now we break it. Idris nodded, eyes glistening. And we rebuild. He stepped forward, facing the journalists. I will personally fund the expansion of this clinic, he announced. But only if it includes a traditional medicine wing. Run by the woman who taught me more about healing than any university ever did. The crowd gasped. Amara's eyes widened. Mama, she whispered. You will run the healing wing? I smiled, small, tired, and full of strength I thought I had lost. Yes, my child. Traditional and modern medicine can live side by side. We are not enemies. We are one story. And as cameras flashed, and rumors exploded across Nairobi, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. But part of me knew. The revelation was only the beginning. Because the powerful never let their secrets die quietly. And the forces that once tried to erase me might not be done after Idris' confession. After the truth split open the morning like a cracked calabash, Nairobi buzzed with whispers that felt like dust storms. Some whispered my name with respect. Others with curiosity. And some with anger. Truth is a snake. The moment you expose it, someone always tries to step on its head. As Idris stepped off the podium, crowds parted around him like he was Moses. And they were the trembling sea. He walked toward me. But before he reached my side, a group of men in dark suits appeared. Cold eyes. Hard jaws. Political wolves dressed as bodyguards. The leader stepped forward. Voice smooth like poisoned honey. Ambassador Lima, he said. We need a word. Privately. Idris stiffened. I recognized that voice. That style. That entitlement. He was his brother. The one who inherited their father's political empire. The one who had always hated me. He didn't look at me. Not even once. Idris, he said through clenched teeth. You had no right to reveal family matters to the public. Do you understand what you've done? Idris' jaw tightened. Yes, he said calmly. I told the truth. You destroyed our father's legacy. His brother hissed. You exposed confidential investigations, fabricated stories. I stepped forward. Fabricated? I repeated. My voice was low. But it sliced the air like a clean blade. His eyes flicked toward me. As if seeing me for the first time. Or rather, seeing the ghost he wished stayed buried. You should be grateful, he spat. We spared you back then. I froze. So it was true. The threats. The raid. The attempt to silence me forever. And he admitted it like he was discussing weather. Idris moved to shield me. Enough, he said, his voice cold. You can no longer silence her. His brother leaned in, face tight with warning. You have jeopardized your career, your position, your future in diplomacy. Idris didn't blink. Some futures, he said softly, are worth sacrificing for truth. His brother's nostrils flared. You think the public will applaud you? They will swallow you alive. Maybe, Idris replied. But at least I will fall standing, not kneeling to lies. The brother stepped closer to me. Too close. You, he said coldly, should have disappeared when we told you to. A ripple of fear shivered down my spine. Not for myself, but for Amara behind me, her shoulders shaking with silent tears. Idris took a step forward, his voice like thunder trapped beneath stone. If you touch her, threaten her, or even breathe in her direction. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. The warning hung in the air like a sharpened blade. The brother looked at Idris with disgust. You've ruined us, he whispered. You've turned our family name into mud. No, Idris replied. Our father did that. I simply stopped pretending. The political entourage made a tight circle around Idris' brother. This is not over, the brother said. We will speak at the council. Idris smirked slightly. We will. And I will tell them everything. His brother shot him a murderous glare before retreating into the building. The courtyard exhaled slowly, as if relieved a storm had passed, even though it had only just begun. Amara stepped forward, her face pale. Mama. I didn't know they tried to take you away. I didn't know they were behind the raid. I touched her cheek tenderly. My child. You were a baby. You did not need to know the ugliness that walked in men's hearts. She shook her head. But I carried their name on my clinic's wall. And I rejected yours. I wiped her tears with my thumb. Now you know better. Now you stand taller. Idris turned to us. There's more, he said quietly. The project they tried to force on your land. They plan to revive it. They want to push out villages. Traditional healers. People who do not fit their image of a modern Kenya. Amara gasped. So they'll come after Mama again? Idris nodded slowly. Yes. My pulse hammered in my ears. They can try, I whispered. I am not the woman they chased decades ago. I survived. I healed others. I raised a daughter alone. I will not run again. Idris looked at me with something like awe. But then he placed a hand on my shoulder. You won't face them alone this time. I felt tears burn behind my eyes. For the first time since I was a girl, I wasn't standing at the edge of danger alone. But little did we know, the storm that was coming would test each of us in ways we never imagined. And the next attack would not come from politicians, but from someone standing much closer to us, when the politicians left with their threats hanging in the air like smoke. The crowd slowly scattered. But the tension stayed, resting on our shoulders like a wet blanket no one could shake off. The ceremony had ended. Yet the echoes of Idris' confession clung to every wall of the clinic. Amara insisted on giving me a private tour of the facility. Perhaps to soothe her guilt. Perhaps to remind herself that she had built something worthy, even if it was born from secrecy. The clinic was large, beautiful, expensive, full of polished floors and the scent of imported disinfectant. But as we walked through the corridors, I felt it. A heaviness. A coldness. Something wrong. I had spent my life reading people by their breaths, by the shift of their eyes, by the weight of their footsteps. Healing teaches you that danger does not always roar. Sometimes it watches quietly from doorways. We walked toward the room labeled Future Traditional Medicine Wing, under construction. Amara smiled softly. This will be your space, Mama. Your herbs, your tools, your healing. Combined with modern practice. A new era. Her voice trembled. As if she feared I would reject her offer. I touched her cheek. A healer walks wherever healing is needed, I said. And if this wing is to carry my spirit, it must also carry truth. She nodded, relief softening her shoulders. But before we entered the room, I stopped. Someone was inside. Tools clinked. Papers rustled. Footsteps moved deliberately. Not like a worker, but like someone searching for something. Amara frowned. No one should be in there. I placed a finger to my lips, motioning her to stay back. My heart beat slower. The way it does when instinct takes over. I pushed the door gently. Inside stood a young man in a white coat. His back was turned toward us. He rifled through the boxes of herbs I had brought days earlier. Carefully, silently. As if he knew exactly what he was looking for. Excuse me, I said. He froze. Then he turned. And my heart dropped. It was Amara's head doctor, Dr. Baraka. The man she trusted most. The one she had called my right hand. His expression flickered. Guilt hiding behind a mask of politeness. Oh. Mama Zuri, he said smoothly. I was just organizing the supplies. No one told me this room was off limits. A lie. My herbs were sealed. Yet their wrappings lay open on the table. Amara stiffened beside me. Baraka, she said slowly. What are you doing with my mother's herbs? His smile tightened. Routine check. Routine checks don't involve breaking seals, Amara said sharply. Something in Baraka's eyes shifted. The softness cracked, revealing something sharp underneath. You exposed your father's secrets today, he said. Voice low, almost mocking. You think there won't be consequences? You think powerful men will kneel to your mother's plants and stories? Amara stepped back, shocked. How do you know about my father? She whispered. Baraka leaned against the table casually. People talk, he said. Security guards, journalists, politicians. And some of us pay attention when the world changes. His smile grew colder. You brought a storm into this clinic, Amara. And storms drown villages. I moved forward, placing myself between him and my daughter. What do you want? I asked. He laughed softly. I want what your father's family promised me. A position. Funding. Expansion of the clinic, without your traditional nonsense taking space. Amara's breath caught. You're working with them, she whispered. He shrugged. They offered me a future. And in return, I protect their secrets. A chill crawled up my spine. Baraka continued. All I needed was proof that your herbal supplies could be labeled unsafe. One contaminated sample. One patient reaction. One media leak. And your mother's reputation. Gone. Amara gasped, horrified. You were trying to sabotage her herbs. I watched him silently, reading the tremor behind his bravado. He was afraid. Not of us, but of the men behind him. Baraka, I said gently. You are young. You think their world will protect you. It won't. His jaw tightened. You don't know anything about my world. Oh, I whispered. I know it better than you think. Before he could react, Idris stepped into the doorway. His face was carved in stone. I heard everything. Baraka went pale. This is over, Idris said. Voice cold enough to freeze bone. You are fired. Your license will be reviewed. And the council will learn who has been feeding them false reports. Baraka backed away. Panicked. You can't do that. You don't have proof. Idris pointed to the small camera, blinking in the corner of the room. I installed that this morning, Idris said. I expected interference. But not from inside the clinic. Baraka's legs buckled. He tried to run. But security had already arrived. As they dragged him out, he shouted. You think you've won? You don't know who you're fighting. Your family isn't done with you. His voice echoed down the corridor. Then silence. Amara broke into tears. Mama. I trusted him. I let him run my clinic. I gave him everything. I held her close. Sometimes, I whispered. The deepest wounds come from the hands we trust. Idris placed his hand on my shoulder. His voice steady. This war isn't over, Zuri. But neither are we. Amara wiped her tears. Her face hardening with new strength. Mama, she said firmly. We will face them together. And for the first time in decades, I felt the ground beneath my feet shift. Not with fear, but with the rising of something stronger. Unity. A mother. A daughter. For days after Baraka's betrayal, the clinic became a battlefield of whispers. Journalists camped outside. Politicians traded accusations behind closed doors. The council demanded urgent meetings. Social media buzzed with rumors about the herbal healer who exposed a political dynasty. And through all of it, my daughter walked beside me. Not hiding me, but holding my hand in public. It felt unreal. Like a wound was finally receiving air after decades of being covered. But the storm's greatest wave came. When Idris' brother, the minister, called for a public council hearing. A hearing to decide whether Idris would be removed from his diplomatic post. Whether my presence in the clinic was a threat or asset. Whether the scandal would be buried or addressed. It wasn't justice they wanted. It was silence. But silence was the one thing I was done giving. The council hall. The room was grand, too grand. Polished floors, carved wood. Proud faces masking rotten intentions. Idris and I walked in together. Not as lovers from the past. Not as scandal. But as people carrying a truth bigger than fear. Amara followed. Her white coat spotless. Her head held high. She looked like a doctor. And a warrior. Idris' brother sat at the center of the long table. His eyes burned with the kind of rage only a man losing control can feel. He banged his gavel. This council, he announced, will determine the consequences of the false allegations spread by Ambassador Idris Lima and this, he pointed at me. Like I was a stain on the floor. This herbalist from the slums. A murmur rippled through the room. I felt Amara tense beside me. Idris stood. No, he said. His voice steady. She is not this herbalist. She is Zuri Komu. A healer, a mother. And the reason your housing project failed 40 years ago. The hall erupted in whispers. Idris' brother slammed the gavel again. Enough. We will not indulge in emotional stories. But I stepped forward. And the room fell quiet. Because sometimes truth walks in quietly. And demands to be heard. I placed my hands on the table. Hands rough from years of grinding herbs. Pulling roots. Washing wounds. Hands my daughter once asked to hide. My name, I said softly, was almost erased by this council's ancestors. I was chased from my land. Not because I was uneducated. Not because I was dangerous. But because someone wanted to build houses. Over the graves of my family. A hush spread. I continued. Your raid burned forests of medicine. It burned healing. It burned livelihoods. But you did not burn me. Or the knowledge I inherited from generations. I looked them straight in the eye. And you will not burn my daughter's future. The council members shifted uncomfortably. Idris' brother sneered. This emotional performance does not change the law. Idris stepped beside me. No, he said. But corruption does. And I brought proof. He opened a folder. A thick one. Filled with documents. Maps. Audio recordings. And old classified files. The council members leaned in. One gasped. Another cursed under their breath. The evidence was undeniable. Land-grabbing orders. Forged reports about dangerous herbs. Secret deals with developers. Baraka's communication with officials. Idris' brother's face drained of color. You stole these documents. No, Idris said. I recovered them. Because the truth belongs to the people it harmed. The room fell silent. A silence heavy with shame. One councilwoman stood. What is your request, Mama Zuri? I breathed slowly. Not revenge. Not punishment. Respect, I said. And recognition that traditional knowledge is part of Kenya's future, not its past. She nodded. The council will vote. One by one, hands rose. Not all. But enough. More than enough. The council declared. Idris kept his diplomatic status. The raid was officially recognized as unjust. The Lima family's land project was permanently cancelled. A partnership between traditional healers and doctors would be established nationwide. When the decision was read aloud, I felt something inside me crumble. Not in pain, but in release. 40 years of silence. Finally exhaled. 2 weeks later, the clinic reopened. This time, I walked through the front door. Invited, welcomed, honored. Amara stood on stage. Her voice steady. This clinic, she said, carries the name Komalima Health Center. A union of roots and wings. She gestured toward me. And the traditional healing wing will be led by Mama Zuri Komu. Applause thundered. I stepped forward. My voice trembling. I do not heal with herbs alone, I said. I heal with stories. With memory. With the belief that no child should ever feel ashamed of the soil that made them. Idris stood near the back, watching with eyes full of pride. And something gentler. Something we had once known. And maybe could know again. Amara took my hand. Mama, she whispered. I want the world to know your name. I touched her cheek. My child. You are the world that knows my name. Months later, the clinic blossomed. Patients arrived for both modern treatment and traditional healing. Children from my village visited proudly. Doctors trained with respect, not arrogance. And one evening, as the sun set over Nairobi, Idris walked beside me in the healing garden. Zuri, he said softly. I cannot undo our past. But if you allow it, I would like to be part of your future. I looked at him. Older, wiser. No longer afraid. We will walk slowly, I said. Like two people learning a story again. He nodded. And in that moment, under the golden light, I felt a new chapter begin. Not of scandal. Not of fear. But of healing. Healing for me. For my daughter. For a country learning to honor its roots. And maybe, just maybe, for Idris too.